So yeah, Sensing Lab, we're an end node or an end device manufacturer based on LoRaWAN networks. So just very quickly, a few slides. First about me, you've probably noticed now I'm not English born, I'm French. And basically, just really quickly, into electronics engineer, I'm more of an engineer than a salesperson. So if you've got technical question, I'm more than happy to dive into technical aspects. I had an experience in Wales with a technology company building a drone. We might have heard of it, Zano. We did a Kickstarter campaign. Maybe some of you are looking into Kickstarter campaign. Feel free to come and have a chat about it. We've got quite an extreme experience of it, having raised $3.5 million and crashing fairly quickly as well. So feel free to come have a chat with me. I'll be more than happy to share the experience there. And then that led me to another startup, Sensing Lab, back in France back then, who are developing end nodes and sensors, basically. So about Sensing Lab really quickly, is 4 directors from a previous company called Coronis, which got bought by Honeywell, a large British corporation. They were doing radio communicating devices on what we consider now to be the first generation of radio protocol compared to all the LPWAN technologies. So very quickly, the difference were, as a benchmark, a line of sight communication was only 1 kilometer there, and we get 15 kilometers with LoRaWAN. Battery-wise, we were on 5 to 7 years of battery life. We can get 10 plus years with LoRaWAN Sigfox devices. But the DNA of the company is into large volume manufacturing because we were addressing the smart metering markets. So that explains some of the key features of our devices. So very quickly on the different technologies there, we started the company being agnostic of technology. So as been mentioned before, you've got Sigfox available there. That was the first new technology in that LPWAN sphere. Very long range, but it has got very easy to use because it's a one-stop network. So it's whether it's there or not, but then it's plug and play when you want to connect a device. Now the problem are you have to use Sigfox network. It's like you're tied to that operator in particular. It's not bidirectional, and the technology makes it quite difficult to penetrate walls, but it has very, very long range. Now we've got the LoRa, so you're starting to become familiar with it, or already very familiar with it. A bit shorter range, but much better wall penetration due to how the spectrum is used. Same kind of battery life, but then you can have bidirectional communication. But the ecosystem is far more complex as well, which can be a good thing. It's more open, but then you've got loads of solutions, whether you want to go build your own network or use a third-party network, which third-party network, and all sorts of considerations, which can be good, but also can be confusing. And then the one a lot of people talk about, but where is it? It's the NB-IoT, the LTE-M. So it's a lot of assumptions around it. What we know from people looking at the technology is that it's likely to be more expensive than the first two. It's likely to have a lower battery life. So as Sensing Lab, because of our market into the smart metering and the smart building, LoRaWAN was the one asked by the customers. So we started agnostic, and actually we went full on LoRaWAN. But we see room for all technologies in the global IoT sphere and the LP1 market. For us, Sigfox will be really good in outdoor application. Smart agriculture, maintenance on roads, motorways, rail track, that sort of application. We feel Sigfox has got a very strong offering. LoRaWAN into the smart city, smart building, smart metering, we feel is really strong. And NB-IoT will be really strong in all the powered applications. So vending machines, car charging stations, street lighting, probably, that sort of application. So it's not one is going to beat the other. There is a lot of communication around how NB-IoT will make LoRa and Sigfox vanish, We absolutely don't believe in that because they are 3 different technologies offering different pros and cons for different applications. Now, for the go-to-market for Sensing Lab, the route we took because of the experience and the contact of the directors and founders of Sensing Lab was basically we have the know-how to make a device, a good device, but then we're a startup, we don't have cash, and we don't necessarily have the knowledge of mass production cost and industrialization. So basically, what we felt was the best scheme was to have very early on partners believing in us and in the technologies. So partners both on the CEM, the electronics manufacturing side. That was very important because it's a game of being able to mass produce, reduce cost, and being able to scale up very quickly. And then distributors who can actually do the buy stock, do the first line of service, be the pre-sales, the after-sales, all sorts of services. Distributors, they are quite often seen as just moving boxes, but they are very important if you want to reach volume and be able to address certain market where they've got salespeople on the road. And then on electronics manufacturing, it's very important to have CE. Now, we know nowadays CE might not mean anything for UK. We'll see what happens. But at the moment, if you go into volume production, you need CE, and very few people know how to really deal with the sort of certification. So again, it's important to have people expert in manufacturing very early on in the process of making devices, so they can advise on what's good, what's not good to get done. Especially in radio transmission as well, there is a whole set of certifications, additional certifications. And then the LoRa Alliance certified, but it's the same with the Sigfox certified. It's very important because the technology using the unlicensed spectrum, anybody can bring device, connect, and do pretty much anything and everything. Now, it's a shared space. You have to imagine it as a shared space. And if some device are rogue device, just keep communicating, sending payloads, then that's airtime not available for other devices in the space. So the certification is there to ensure everybody is respecting the rules about you're only allowed to communicate during that amount of time, and there is a cycle, a duty cycle, only 2 seconds every 3 minutes, for example. And if you've got in the region devices not respecting that, then that's basically jamming the space for you and for your devices. So certification is really important. Now, what we found is that there is a strong paradox between the expected cost of a device and the true cost. Now, I'm going to ask you to basically participate in that little question. Let's say you've got a temperature sensor, very cheap, well, very cheap. You will see it's a PCB, an antenna, a battery, plastic casing. So what, 5 to 10 years battery life, what do you think would the cost of that be? How many people would think it's less than £20? Raise your hand. Okay, let's say 25% of you would say that. 20 to 40 pounds? Okay, for 100 pieces, we're there. 40 to 60 pounds? Okay, and more than 60 pounds. Okay, so by majority, we're less than 20 pounds or between 20 and 40 pounds. Now, let's really quickly look at cost. Bill of material. At the moment, we've got about 14, 15 pounds of material. It's very rounded, but the Semtech chip by LoRa, to use the LoRa technology, is quite expensive. PCBs, battery, casing, RF system, and the rest of it. It's quite expensive. So we're already at 15 pounds. Now, you need to get assembly for that. You've got your electronics manufacturing company partner who will include the cost of certification into assembly, the cost of procuring components, holding components, all that sort of things. So you've got assembly cost. And then you've got logistic, transport, insurance for the transport as well. It's quite important. Shit happens. So you're already at £20. But you need to make a living. So you need your margin. And then you're not cash strong, or you're very lucky. So you need distributors to buy products from you. And they want their margin, and they are not selling thousands of products just yet. And they have technical support and all sorts, and maybe placing a bet on your product as well, because it's fairly new technology. So they want a fairly big chunk. And then you're not installing the products yourself, and your distributor might not be installing the products either. And integrators, they like to have a little discount on the product, a secret discount, so they can charge a bit more and get some of that money back in their pocket. So overall, you're very quickly to an expensive device, and that's the reality of things. Okay? Now, it's not a drama. I mean, it's a new technology. Cost here will go down. The risk here will go down for distributors because the technology will be a bit more known about. There will be national networks available, and the words will be around that LoRaWAN works. So all of that in a year's time, I would expect to really go down. But at the moment, that's the sort of prices you're looking at. Oh, yeah. I forgot that one. OK. So I say it's a complex chain of value because the way it's built and the way IoT is built is in several layers. So you've got companies like us and startups, loads of startups making end-node devices, sensors for any sort of applications, so many applications. Then you get the network providers. So it might be a private network. You might have your own gateway network. But then you've got also Stream, Orange, national operators, or network server providers. Then you get integrators. So they are the ones actually fitting the products in and for the client. And that's basically who we sell to. Integrators, they are the one we sell devices to. It's not the end customer. The end customer just wants a solution. Okay? So it's quite difficult because integrators, they are quite conservative as well. They've known a technology for past 10 years, and they don't necessarily want to change their way. So it's all a learning curve, and the more the words get around about LoRa, the more heavyweights behind it, the likes of Stream, cities being covered, BT, and other people, big companies, starting to really get the ball moving on it, the easier it will be. And then you get the software solutions. Now, because here you get the data, the raw data. Here you get the transportation layer. Here you get the people who fit the hardware in place. But then the customer, he needs a dashboard or data analytics or to feed the data in their servers. And for hundreds or thousands of different applications. So the one I've listed here are what's called AEP. I'm sure there are many more than that, but it's application enabling platform. So it's if you want to run a proof of concept, you don't necessarily need to have very strong programming skill. You can use one of these guys and get the data to their platform, and then they've got sort of a dashboard in widget system, so you can quickly, easily get some temperature charts or all sorts of, quickly make a dashboard basically out of it. Send alerts via Twitter or SMS, or so that's a good way to get started. But then when you get to a very industrialized solution, you might need your own software, or you might need to integrate with your customer's software. Now, in IoT, the chain of value is actually all over there. there are some reports saying that that's only about 18% of the value of a total application. And then that is about 15%. That's about 20%, but the most value is in the software. So, you know, there is room for everybody, and there are many opportunities all over that ladder to get involved and to do some really nice things. Right, yeah. What we've discovered is when you talk with big companies, with cities, councils, they all want IoT. It's a big thing. They want IoT, but they absolutely don't know what to do with it or what application. So they ask you, what sort of use case you've got? What can you do? We are a device manufacturer. We can help monitor rivers, temperatures, and things like that. But we don't do the network. We don't do the application. We need partners to bring the full vertical solution. And the more open we are, the better. The more partners involved, they will find new uses for our sensors, or they will bring more value out of the software for the town councils or the companies. So how many IoT market? Loads. Anything smart, really. That's the trendy word. Anything smart. And then how many use case? Well, many more. That's only a few I had in 10 minutes, and that's there are experiments in all these fields with LoRaWAN sensors, but that's only 10% of what a list could be in a year time. Really, how to think about it is anything which could be monitored, could add value being monitored, we can use LoRaWAN, Sigfox, maybe tomorrow NB-IoT to get the information on a platform, on the cloud, and add value to that information, to the data. Right, so conclusion. There are many companies in the domain, whether they are making sensors, providing network, providing software solutions. And unless you've got a very key niche market and you know how to really deal with the vertical really well, and you know your customers very well, and you know your offer will be just good enough, so you can build the hardware, maybe the connectivity and the software. The experience we had is customers, when you sell hardware, they just want hardware. They don't want to be tied to a subscription system. Now, for connectivity, they are used to have a subscription. It's your mobile phone, your Wi-Fi. So that's all right. You can go subscription. And for software, subscription is admitted as well. But it's all about, if you're doing hardware, focus on bringing added value and adding value to the hardware. But if you do a subscription system on your hardware, you might be seen as a bit greedy, really. And that's what we felt. And because it's an ecosystem, you might find companies competing a bit or preferring certain hardware for certain people, actually moving to a different supplier, or different supplier with different sensors. For example, rat traps connected by LoRaWAN. That's something Never will do as Sensing Lab. But we might be talking with a town council who says, oh, that'd be a good idea to have these guys as well. And because it's an open protocol, and LoRaWAN guarantees that any LoRaWAN sensor can connect to any LoRaWAN network, that's all about bringing as much value with different sensors, different software solutions, and that's what the IoT is about, we think. It's really being open and bringing as much data for many different type of applications. And that's pretty much it for me.